Hello bookworms! This is the start of a new reading vlog, and it's an especially special reading vlog because it is actually my birthday week. So Andrew and I took a week off of work and we are going to kick things off today. We're going back into the city and we are going to revisit a lot of the places that were like our favorite places when we lived in the city. So we haven't been there in a while. So very excited about that, but I had a whole plan for what I wanted to read during this vlog, but I'm a mood reader. So I woke up a couple days ago and I had every intention of reading Fourth Wing. I actually read 2 chapters of it and I do like what I read so far, but all of a sudden I was just like, I have to read The Secret History. I don't know, I just felt so compelled to do it and I was like, why am I resisting this feeling? I just should pick it up. So that's what I decided to do. I've actually never read The Secret History before. This is my first time reading it and so far I love it. Let's see, I am 172 pages into it, so I've actually already made like a little bit of a dent. But it's funny, like I feel like I've been reading it non-stop and I'm like not even halfway into it. So this one's definitely going to take me a while. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the only book that I read for this full week, and also potentially finish Queen of Shadows since I'm listening to that on audio. I'm so glad that I decided to pick this one up. I'm just really feeling dark academia lately. I have been very like immersed in it, and yeah, it's really like just making me very happy. So I'm really glad that I finally picked this one up. It's also my sister-in-law's favorite book, so she's really excited that I'm reading it. We're gonna see them tomorrow and we'll definitely talk about it then. But Andrew and I have to go and catch a train, so I will show you clips throughout our day. Andrew and I are back home. We had a really nice day in the city. First we went to Quality Eats, which is one of our favorite favorite brunch places. So good. They have this one breakfast sandwich that's like monkey bread with scrambled eggs and cheese and like these 2 different kinds of sauces and avocado, bacon, but I get my bacon on a plate so that Andrew can eat it because I don't eat bacon. There's this one drink that I love called the South Side. It's like gin and cucumber and like so refreshing, so delicious. I always love them. So I had one of those, had the sandwich, actually only ate half my sandwich too, and Andrew had the other half. And then we went to a board game cafe called Hex & Co, which was really fun. We played the expansion of Splendor. It was really funny because we got there and we were like, okay, we should definitely play a game that we can't play at home. So we were like looking and looking, and then I was like, we've never played the expansion of Splendor. So we took that off the shelf, and it turns out that there are actually like 4 different versions of the game that you can play using the expansion. So I was like, let's try them all. So we played 4 games of that, which was also really fun. And then we went for a nice walk through Central Park, and then we went to the Nintendo store, the McNally Jackson in Rockefeller Center. Then we went to a board game store called The Complete Strategist, where we attempted to purchase the expansion of Splendor, but unfortunately they didn't have it in stock, so I'm gonna have to find it online. We went to the Harry Potter store, and then finally we went to the Barnes & Noble in Union Square, which I was really excited for. I haven't been there in a long time, and it's honestly just like the best Barnes & Noble ever. It's huge. They have like such a huge selection of things. It's also really cool. It was like 1,000,000 degrees, so it was so nice to be in a store that was just like pumping AC, even though both of us were like really exhausted at that point. So I'm just gonna show you like a little book haul of what I got on my day. Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't really want to get anything that was gonna like add to my TBR very much, so I kind of got more like fun, like collection, like pretty kind of edition books just to like have on my bookshelves and that I will read, but I don't really count as TBR books, if that makes sense, and you'll understand why when you see them. Starting off, I got a book that I've had my eye on for so long. It's actually one of the like Barnes & Noble leather-bound editions. Actually, why don't I take this plastic off so it's not as shiny. So it's a treasury of Irish fairy and folk tales, which I feel like will be really fun. I love reading fairy tale things, so I think that this will be awesome. I also just think that this is so beautiful. It has gold gilded pages. There I am blinding you again. And then the back is just gorgeous, and then this is our spine. So this is one that I'm really, really excited to have my hands on. I just think like the design of it is so beautiful. I love all the Celtic imagery in the border. Then I got this book called Magica. It is Finding Spiritual Guidance Through Plants, Herbs, Crystals, and More by Carlotta Santos. It just looks really beautiful. I really like a lot of like the illustrations inside of it. Also like these end papers are amazing. But I just thought it was really cool and like a little bit witchy and fun. These are table of contents. That's a really pretty illustration. It's just like full of gorgeous illustrations. It has like some information about tarot cards, and then it goes through like the moon and different astrological signs. I opened this one because it has Leo. I'm actually on the cusp. I am sometimes the last day of Cancer, sometimes the first day of Leo. So I have a lot of characteristics from both signs, but I feel like I'm probably a little bit more Leo leaning. I like to think that I have the best qualities from both, but I also have the negative qualities from both, so there's that. But I don't know, it's just cool. It has like lunar phases, and yeah, I'm very excited to read this in completion. Then I got 2 books that were in like the book annex like clearance section. So first, I have to take the stickers off obviously, but I got this, which is the Element Encyclopedia of Magical Creatures. It's really fun. It's just like an A to Z like book that talks about all different kinds of like mythical and magical creatures. I thought it was really fun. When I first opened it, the first page that I flipped to had magpies, and I love those, so that was enjoyable. I was like, I feel like I'll enjoy this. I think it's just like a fun like reference book to have, and I'm also looking forward to reading this one at some point. I also saw actually they had in here, I think, Kosheki the Deathless, which is a character in the Olivia Blake book, One for My Enemy, which I haven't read yet, but is on my TBR for this month. And then I also got this book of practical witchcraft. It is a compendium of spells, rituals, and occult knowledge. It has silver gilded pages. It's just really pretty. I thought that it was really cool. Really pretty purple pages. It has a lot of just like very pretty little illustrations. It talks a little bit about witchcraft. I by no means classify myself as a witch of any sort, but I just honestly thought that it would be pretty interesting to read, so that's why I decided to pick it up, and I'm excited to do that. So, oh my gosh, so then on the train on the way home, we were gonna order Thai food that we didn't have to like cook or anything, and we called our favorite place and they were like, oh, we're so sorry, but the owner retired and we're closed right now. So we were like, no. So we ended up going to a really cute little Irish place and got some food there, and now we are going to settle in and watch Good Omens. We're rewatching the first season before the second season comes out, which is next week. Very excited to do that. It's really nice like to rewatch it. I love that series. I love the book and it's just so much fun. So definitely looking forward to going upstairs, getting changed, and just like laying in bed for the rest of the night, because we walked 8.5 miles today. So in the heat, it was like really hot. A long day, like it was a really nice day, but both of us are just exhausted now. And then tomorrow we're gonna go and do a lot more walking, so we have to rest up for that. But that's all that I have for right now, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Hello. So vlog day 2, it is officially my birthday. I'm really excited. I actually had a whole plan to get up and then have like a clip where I'm talking about the secret history, because I've just hit the 40% mark and I definitely have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. However, I ended up reading more, then watching some booktube videos, and then realizing that I only had like a half an hour until my dad was picking Andrew and I up, and we are going to Sands Point Preserve with my brother, his wife, and his wife's parents. And I'm so excited. It's gonna be so pretty. I've actually never been there before, but Sands Point Preserve is one of the like Gold Coast mansions on Long Island. It's one of the ones that inspired like Great Gatsby. I'm so excited to go. I think it's just gonna be absolutely beautiful. There's a castle there, so I will definitely bring you along, show you some clips from there, and then we're gonna be going to one of my favorite breweries. So I'll have to talk to you about the secret history probably either later tonight or tomorrow. We'll see when things happen. Back home. We had a really fun day. It was really nice, but I am so exhausted, so no wrap up really. We're just gonna go upstairs, I'm gonna drink a whole lot of water, and we're going to finish catching up on what we do in the shadows. It is a very many days later from when I first started this vlog. We have done a whole bunch of stuff and really enjoyed our nice, quiet staycation birthday celebration week. Andrew and I have played so many games of Splendor. We've played many games of Catan. We saw the Barbie movie. We've eaten so many of my favorite foods this week. Everything has just been wonderful. We are finally going to talk about The Secret History. So future editing Kristen here, it's 2 days later and I finished The Secret History. So I felt like I needed to come back and just fully discuss the last chapter in the epilogue. First, I will go back to past Kristen, who had read everything but chapter 8 in the epilogue, and ignore her when she says that she hasn't finished it yet, because she will be back with her full thoughts. And also just a warning that this is very spoilery. I realized I forgot to say that. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk spoilers, but then it just kind of happened. So just beware if you haven't read Secret History yet. I definitely will be spoiling the book. Okay, so back to past Kristen. I was really hoping that I was going to finish this book before the end of the week and talk about it at the end of the vlog. Still have 1 chapter to go, which according to my Kindle will take 3.5 hours. So I still have to read that, so keep that in mind as I'm discussing it. Overall, thus far, I have really enjoyed my experience reading this book. The Secret History is basically like the ultimate dark academia book. It is the book that everybody references when they talk about the genre, and as someone who is a huge fan of the genre and has read numerous other dark academia books, it just felt wrong that I hadn't read this one yet. So I finally decided to pick it up. We are following a group of students who go to Hampton College, and we find out on the first page that these students killed one of their other classmates. They're in a very small, very elite group. They're studying ancient Greek. They have kind of a questionable teacher. Like, the entire book is like about the journey of getting to the point where the murder took place, and then what I've read now is the fallout, everything that has happened once the murder occurred, and just like the aftermath and the handling of the emotions that come along with this horrible act that these people were involved in. The entire story is told from Richard's point of view. Richard is kind of like the outsider. He is not wealthy, but he definitely presents himself that way in order to fit in. He had studied ancient Greek for 2 years in his previous college, so he wants nothing more than to join this program, and he appeals to the teacher. He's denied his request, and then after he has an interaction with the other students in the library one day, they tell him that he should go back and talk to Julian again, and then he secures his spot within their class. The writing, like the prose and just like the description of the scenery, is unbelievably gorgeous. And I think that so far, like, my favorite part of the book has been the lecture that we experience in the classroom when they are dissecting works from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Many people have pointed out this quote, but I really enjoyed the quote that beauty is terror. I thought that was extremely thought-provoking, and I also really enjoyed the way that they discussed the differences between the Greeks and the Romans, and how the Greeks would dabble in the Bacchanalia festivals in order to completely lose control of their mortal selves, to experience something completely different. And they were saying that because they did that, they didn't have like the kind of wars that the Romans did, because the Romans were so like uptight and never would shed that very rigid sense of self. That obviously is like a major player in how they get to the point of the murder. These kids kind of take it upon themselves to try to stage their own Greek ritual, though Richard, our narrator, is not involved in that, and that actually ends in murder. What happens there is that Bunny, who is another student that was originally like involved in the group, he's the one that we know is going to end up murdered. He was left out because he's not following the rules and regulations that the rest of the group set forth. They wanted to very closely follow the ancient Greek rituals. They were very strict about what they were allowed to eat, the way that they were allowed to bathe, like very specific things, and he was breaking those rules, so they decided to leave him behind. When they do that, they accidentally murder someone. he accidentally kind of finds out about it, and then he fixates on it, and they are all very worried that he is going to say something and that they're going to get in trouble and they're going to have to go to jail in order to pay for the crime that they committed. They decide, this time they premeditate a murder, and they decide to kill him, and that will be like the way that they kind of get away with what happened. So it's just like really crazy to watch the thought process behind all of the decisions that each of the characters make, and to see the way that some of them are so like ruthless and like are completely unaffected by the choices that they've made. Meanwhile, other ones, it's clearly like eating them up inside. And then also for Richard, who wasn't there for the initial killing, but then is involved in the secondary premeditated part. And part of it too, which is interesting, is that I feel like because these are young people, these are students, they don't fully grasp the consequences that come with doing something like that. Like when Richard is experiencing everything, he's pretty like complacent about things, ambivalent about things, and it's not really until afterward that the like heinousness and the permanence of what they've done really like strikes him. And then he's retelling the story as an adult because it's obviously something that has stuck with him throughout the years. So I think that it just has really unique observations on the human experience. I think that the way that Donna Tartt expresses the ideas and opinions within the book are just like so poignant. I cannot even tell you how many passages I have highlighted in this book. So many things I have read and then read over. So I feel like that's also kind of why I'm reading this slowly, is because sometimes I'll like read something and then I need to read it like a couple more times because it's really just like hitting me, and I just want to like further absorb it. So it's taking me like double the time to read this book that it probably should, because I'm being so like meticulous about every single word on the page. So suffice to say, I am really enjoying The Secret History. I think that this is probably going to be one of my new favorite books. It's definitely a classic for a reason. I'm so glad that I finally decided to pick it up. I obviously can't discuss the ending because I haven't read the final chapter yet. However, being at the point that I'm at, I already feel like I've gotten so much out of it, and I'm so excited to see how the story is going to wrap up. I'm not really expecting there to be any kind of twist because it's more like literary fiction, and it's not like a thriller where that feels like it's the point. It feels like we were told at the beginning, like, this is what happened. So I'm not really expecting a twist in that regard, and I don't feel like there really needs to be one. It's just done so well. Book is like pretty close to perfect. Obviously these characters are all horrible people. I wouldn't want to know any of them in real life. I definitely wouldn't get along with any of them in real life. Everyone is like extremely morally gray, and while there is a grain of truth to that when it comes to some people, I think that they're like exceptionally villainous, way more so than the average person or the average young person that is easily influenced by their teacher, their studies. I'm very thoroughly enjoying it. I feel like it's making me think a lot, and I'm actually really excited to, once I finish, even just go back and reread all the things that I highlighted, because I can foresee myself like rereading some of these passages for years and years to come. Okay, future Kristen back here now to discuss the ending, and wow. So I woke up on Sunday morning, which is today, and I was like, I really want to finish this book so I can go into the work week, the end of my vacation, unfortunately, starting a new book, starting fresh. And despite my Kindle telling me that it was going to take 3.5 hours to read it, I was like, it is happening this morning. So I got up really early. I read from 6 a.m. until about 9:30 a.m. finished Secret History, and my mind is just completely blown. Poor, sweet, innocent past Kristen was not expecting any kind of twist, because I thought that the point of the story was like the emotion and just, you know, exploring different human desires, exploring beauty, all of those kinds of things. And we definitely did more of it, but I was absolutely not expecting things to go down the way that they did. In hindsight, it completely makes sense, and I don't know why I didn't see any of this coming. But basically what happens is that Charles kind of loses it. He goes a little bit crazy, and then he like starts drinking very heavily, and he's like gonna crack. Like, you can tell that he's the next one that's gonna crack, and just things go just completely awry. He's fighting with Henry. Henry's obviously the ringleader in all of this stuff. My camera battery's gonna die. I'm gonna change that before I continue talking. All right, sorry about that. So basically this whole thing kind of does play out like a Greek tragedy. And I have to say, like, in the beginning, I easily recognized how terrible Julian was, but I also like kind of had a soft spot for him and kind of like admired his intelligence. And that's clearly how Richard feels at the beginning and also at the end. He says that he kind of like rewrote this many times, making Julian look better than he was, because I think he wanted to keep that innocence about a young person expecting an older person to know what's right and to be a good person. So when Julian finds that letter and Henry explains to him everything that happened leading up to Bunny's death, and he just runs away and gives the letter back to Henry, I was like, I was completely shocked. I could not believe that he was fine with letting these college kids like literally get away with murder. I just did not see that one coming, and it just shows you like what kind of person he is. So that was like mind-blowing. Then, so following that, obviously now someone else knows, which is a problem, but as Henry points out, he is too much of a coward to really say or do anything about it. So instead he just disappears. He doesn't show up for their next Greek class. And then this whole situation kind of culminates in all of them meeting at the hotel that Camilla is staying at. As I mentioned before, Charles has kind of been like losing it, and Charles and Camilla are on the outs. They're twins who previously did like everything together. Henry has put Camilla up in this hotel. So Richard and Francis end up finding Camilla and Henry. They go up to see them after Charles disappears, and they're worried that he's kind of like fled. Meanwhile, him and Henry are supposed to have like a court date because Charles got in trouble for drunk driving in Henry's car. So they get to the hotel, and then Charles shows up with a gun, and obviously he's like extremely unhinged. So he is like, you know, he has the gun. Richard ends up getting shot in the stomach. Henry ends up wrestling the gun away from him. And then right as like the hotel owner is breaking into the room because they've heard all of this commotion, Henry shoots himself twice in the head and somehow survives for 12 hours afterward, which all of like the doctors and everything were like, this is unheard of that someone could survive this for that long, which Richard took as like maybe he really wasn't ready to die. He kind of like took the easy way out of things instead of facing the music for everything that they've done. He now doesn't have to deal with any of the consequences, and yet everyone else does. This group of friends, they fall out of touch, and then in our epilogue we see Richard get a letter from Francis. Francis said that he has been, you know, everything's just been eating him alive for years, and it's now time for him to do the noble thing. So Richard takes the first flight up to Boston to try to see Francis. Turns out Francis attempted to commit suicide, and he is in the hospital. So Richard goes and visits him there, and Richard is like having these like visions, like he keeps thinking that he's seeing Henry while he's in Boston. And then Camilla also comes, and then from there we just find out like basically what's happened to everybody since everything occurred. So Francis is basically sentenced to a life of sadness because Francis is gay, and his grandfather found out that he was seeing another man, and he threatened to disinherit him if he didn't break up with him and marry a woman. So Francis is doing that. Richard is like, you don't have to, you could get by on your own. And Francis is like, absolutely not. Like, I need to be in my grandfather's good graces and to have his money in order to live comfortably. You meet his fiance, who is rather dumb. Then we see Camilla, who has been resigned to taking care of her grandmother. She talks about how her and Charles are still estranged. They don't talk anymore. Charles has gone. He went into like rehab. Francis actually gave him money so that he could go and get help, but he only stayed for like couple of days, I want to say, or a week. He met a woman there. They ran away together. Turns out the woman was married with a baby. They were basically living like the opposite life that all of these kids were accustomed to, but he seemed to have found happiness with her. Neither of them wanted to come home. He was disinherited from his family. Yeah, so Richard kind of makes like a last-ditch effort to get with Camilla, and she ends up revealing that she is still in love with Henry and that she just can't marry Richard. So like each of these characters is like suffering in a very specific and very uncomfortable way, something that I think is like the worst possible scenario for each of them. I think like Richard's basically only chance at happiness would have been getting with Camilla, because it's probably like the only person that will ever fully know him, because she'll know what happened with Bunny. And then yeah, oh my god, I just like, my mind is blown. Like I can't believe this book. I loved it so much. It's like the number of passages that I outlined, so good. Oh, so also Francis says that he also thinks that like maybe like they all know that Henry is dead, but Francis is like, I keep thinking that he's not. Like I keep thinking that he's gonna show up, because if anybody could cheat death, it would be Henry. So he keeps seeing Henry's ghost, and then Richard is like, maybe he is kind of like around, because I thought that I saw him too. Then let me see. I just want to read like one of the last things that I highlighted. Okay, so I love that like even after everything, and even after like how terrible Julian is, they still like look up to him and they're still quoting him. So at the end, Francis says, well, you know what Julian would say. There are such things as ghosts. People everywhere have always known that, and we believe in them every bit as much as Homer did. Only now we call them by different names. Memory, the unconscious. And that like honestly kind of made me cry a little bit. So the final sequence is a dream sequence, and Richard is having like a visitation kind of dream from Henry, and it was just so like powerful and so like a weird in the way that dreams are weird, but just perfectly like conveyed everything. So he like runs into Henry and he's like, you know, everyone is saying that you're dead, and Henry says, I'm not dead, I'm only having a bit of trouble with my passport. So perhaps he's kind of like trapped between worlds, because Richard and Francis have both seen the ghost of Henry. I'm sure Camilla has too, because she seemed uncomfortable and wanted to like immediately change the subject when that came up. He says his movements are restricted. He no longer has the abilities to travel as freely as he would like. And then they're just seeing like all of these beautiful places in history. Richard asks him where they are, and Henry tells him he's afraid that information is classified. Richard asks, is it open to the public? And Henry says, generally no. And then, okay, this is the part that like really got me. So he says, I looked at him. There was so much I wanted to ask, so much I wanted to say, but somehow I knew there wasn't time, and even if there was, that it was all somehow beside the point. Are you happy here? I said at last. He considered this for a moment. Not particularly, he said, but you're not very happy where you are either. So that just encompasses this whole thing perfectly. I cannot tell you how much I love this book. And I also cannot tell you, like, I feel like I've had almost no 5-star books this year. And then I had, I want to say 3 in July, which was, oh, just makes me so happy. I'm really excited to be picking up some really like good things again. So Secret History is like a very dense book, and I feel like I put it off for so long for that exact reason. But I always find that whenever I challenge myself and read something that is going to like really make me think and really kind of sink deep into my soul, I end up just loving it and loving the experience and just the way that it makes me, you know, think about things. So I'm so glad that I read this one. I really want to read some more books that I feel like are going to do the same. And yeah, I think like these quotes, the quotes in this book and these characters are probably, not probably, they're definitely going to be sticking with me like for the rest of my life. I definitely foresee myself rereading this book. I'm just enamored. It's, again, it's like the perfect modern day Greek tragedy. That is officially all that I have for this video. Thank you for sticking with me while I talked through my feelings on this book. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I hope that you enjoyed seeing all of the things that Andrew and I did for my birthday, even though I did have like quite a big gap in there. But if you're curious, it was mostly just a lot of playing board games with Andrew and going in the pool. So yeah, that's all that I have for this vlog. Really excited to start the next one, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.